All right, we're on. Riley Gaines, pleasure.
The pleasure is mine. So thank you so much. This is exciting.
Yeah, you're on a swimming podcast and you're a swimmer, so we're going to talk swimming. Is that all right?
Hey, I call myself a swammer nowadays. Swimmer would be a stretch, Brett.
Do you still swim?
I do here and there.
Yeah.
Obviously not as intensely.
No.
But I even next month I'm swimming Alcatraz. So
Oh,
I still love competing. I love training. I really do. So here and there I do. I do a lot of open water now.
how'd you get pulled into Alcatraz?
I know, right? The how cold it is, the sharks,
Yeah.
the current. I must be
Mm,
crazy. But I'm super excited. I've coordinated this event with a bunch of wounded veterans, and so we'll
mm,
be doing it together, and it's exciting.
cool.
We'll see if
Cool.
I make it out alive.
Yeah. Well, I was doing some thinking about you last night and contemplating where we were going to go with this, and I did tell you that I wanted to stay swimming heavy, and it's interesting. When I look at your life and kind of the progression you had through swimming and then the point of where you got to in this whole saga, do you look back on that moment and think to yourself, like, I had this life before that 200 freestyle, and then I have this life after that 200 freestyle? It's just an amazing kind of,
Pivotal,
fork in the road, isn't it?
110%. Where I am now, what I'm doing now, this is a total 180. That's actually an
Mm,
understatement from where I expected myself to be, where I planned to be.
mm.
Um, so it's unique. I'm taking it day by day. I learned so much, definitely adapting and rolling with the punches, sometimes quite literally. But yeah, it was pivotal, that 200 freestyle at that national championships. Pivotal
Yeah,
in
I mean,
my life.
you're a God-fearing woman. It's like this is a God thing, right? This is one of those things where, look, I was even thinking about, like, even if you finished 100th faster or 100th slower, it doesn't even work out the same way. The fact that you tied with Lia Thomas and where she was at that point, or where he was, depending on how you look at it, but it's like, you know, and the fact that they didn't give you the trophy for, finishing the place that you finished, and then how it went beyond that, it's like it had to happen that way, didn't it?
It's so crazy. You mentioned, me myself being someone who is strongly rooted in my faith. I entirely see this as a God thing. How
Mm,
could you deny the divine intervention that was there to tie down to the hundredth of a second, to be denied the trophy?
mm.
I'll use the word perfect. It really couldn't have happened in a more perfect scenario. Obviously, it should never have happened at all. It's an incredibly unfortunate circumstance for any single person, any single woman to be in. But the way that it did happen, I think it sparked a conversation that was necessary. And I am certainly someone that can turn lemons into lemonade. And that's what I've been doing, at least trying to do these past two-ish or so years since that race.
Well, that's the other thing, is like, it happened to you, and I don't think if it happened to anybody else, again, it wouldn't have gone this way. I mean, you, again, for the first half of your life up to this point, were preparing to be this person as well. You're the school you went to, the influences you had, the way that you grew up, the intelligence you have. Like, you needed all of that in order to get through this as well, or get to this. And then when this fork happened, it happened to exactly the right person at the right time, didn't it?
I think so. You're right. The influences, my family foundation, I think being strongly rooted in my faith, playing sports. I mean, I credit so much of my leadership that I feel has been displayed these past 2 years to even playing sports at that level, the highest level. Setting goals, working to achieve those goals, having this team mindset. All of it had to happen in that way. And yeah, I'm someone who can I can handle it. I can take the arrows, I can take the heat. It doesn't bother me. I'm able to do it with a smile on my face. And I know I didn't know, but now I do know that that is a rarity, especially in younger people,
Mm.
Gen Zers, right? I won't say it's easy all the time, of course not, but I'm so secure in my stance. I'm so secure with myself. I'm so secure that what I'm fighting for is both objective truth, it's biological reality. I'm fighting for biblical truth. And so knowing those things, it keeps me with a smile on my face and an incredibly light heart.
What were your plans before all of this saga? Where did you see your life going? What had you kind of mapped out for yourself?
So I was in dental school after college to be
Oh,
a dentist. That was what
wow.
I was planning on doing. I had taken the DAT, which is the dental admissions test. So, of course, the test to get into dental school, it's this miserable 4-ish hour long test. Covers, believe it or not, biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, math, reading, all the things. Took this test, scored in the top percentile nationally. Could have gone anywhere in the country that I wanted to go to continue my education. I had received a lot of scholarship money actually from, I was the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year. I was the SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. So I had garnered lots of money to continue my post-grad education. Actually was going to University of Tennessee.
Mm,
Uh, and then I was left with this decision, really this internal dilemma. What do I do? I can't do both of these things. I can't fully dedicate myself to my studies and to dentistry while also advocating for this issue. And so I ended up calling the dental school, and I told them, of course, I had already been outspoken at this point. And I told them, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. There's a personal matter that's come up. I was very vague, and they said, Riley, we know who you are. We know what you do, and we love what you do. They said,
mm,
go and fight that fight. Dental school will always be there. Dentists are a dime a dozen, but you and what you're fighting for, it's far more important, which that's not something you hear of often. Again, I think certainly another God thing, God like winking at me, like, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah.
And so that was kind of the timeline there. Of course, this was in 2022 when all of these
Mm,
changes started happening.
mm.
And I was actually set to be an endodontist. That's what I was specializing in, which is root canals.
Oh,
Weirdly enough,
wow.
I know
Jeez.
it. I know. And so I kind of justify God's calling by saying I'm still working on getting to the root of the problem coming out of people's mouths. So it's kind of like a root canal.
I love it. Oh man, what a difference it would have been the last few years for you. How crazy.
I know.
Because I see you everywhere now. Like you're literally everywhere. And listen, before it gets too far into this thing, you've just written a book. So congratulations on that. The book is Swimming Against the Current. Why did you decide to take that avenue? This close into the journey so far.
Yeah, what a crazy thing to be able to add author to my
Yeah.
resume now. That's wild. And I actually just found out the book is a national bestseller after week number 1. So
Wow. Congrats.
very exciting stuff. Yeah, thank you. But it's really, I decided to take this route because after taking the initial stand, the ongoing stand that I have taken, what I have seen, what I have noticed, in the way that the media portrays this issue, portrays me as a person, even
Mm,
me as my character. It's not representative of who I am, of the stand that I've taken, of what I'm fighting for. You'll see the headlines, and it says anti-trans swimmer wants to ban trans athletes.
mm,
That's not what I'm advocating for. That's not me. That's not what I'm saying at all. And so this was an opportunity to be able to, of course, go more in depth about how we got here, where we're going, the broader picture of what this means, how this is harmful, and what we can do as everyday people, not just what we can do as female athletes or as coaches, but parents, just common sense people who intuitively know that men and women are different, not in a way that makes one sex inferior. That's not to say that women are lesser than. No, but we're different in a way that is beautiful, really, that complements one another, and we deserve to be recognized and celebrated and honored based on those unique physical ceilings.
yeah. Good stuff. Well, congrats on the book. That's awesome. And I hope, I guess you can get it everywhere. Anyway, you can get a book, you can get it. So
That's right.
definitely get out there and read that. I'm originally from Sydney, Australia, and I decided to go to college in Auburn, Alabama. So I grew up on the beach in Sydney, this massive city with, I guess 3 or 4 million people now, to a small town in Alabama, rural Alabama. So it's like I knew the difference between Australia and America, especially the deep South America, pretty quickly. But I've often, in my journey as an Australian American, often think back and think to myself, like, where am I? What is this place? Like, what's happening here? Like, this is like, it just blows my mind. America sometimes, coming from the Australian perspective, is like, what is going on in this country right now? And I guess that even the title of your book, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind, like, that's exactly how I feel sometimes in this country. I'm like, what is going on in America? Is it just America, or is it the world? Is like, what's going on,
Oh, well, it's definitely globally. There are several instances of Australia, of Scotland, of England, really all over, where not even just this issue, a lot of these cultural, social issues have I mean, really these nations by a chokehold, and that's what we're seeing. I would say here in the United States. I mean, I can't even believe that we have to have a conversation. I mean, it really blows my mind. The past 2 years or so, the places I've been able to go, the people I've gotten to meet, I mean, millions of followers on
Mm,
Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and different things, for merely saying, I mean, the advocating for the bare minimum, for
mm.
saying that there are two sexes. I mean, it's
Yeah,
wild
it blows my
to.
mind too.
But my husband, he's the same way. He swam at University of Kentucky, and he came
Mhm.
from London. So he came
Mm.
over, like you said, a big city, very different culturally, to Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's been very eye-open too. Something that he thought was interesting about our country in comparison is just how divisive we are as a nation. He said that England is, it's not as much black or white. There's a lot more kind of this laissez-faire mindset. But here, I think we very much pigeonhole ourselves. You're either this or that, which again, I don't think that's representative of society at large. But that's how
Mm.
it's portrayed. That's how our elected officials are voting and responding. That's how our media makes it seem, which is, it does a disservice to everybody when that happens.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Are you being pulled into the political scene? Are they wanting you to kind of fight for office here soon?
I still have sanity, so I'm not that crazy yet. Again, this is just never something that I wanted. I've been able to see firsthand the corruption and the manipulations, certainly on both sides of the political spectrum here, which is disheartening to see as someone who's young, as someone who really does love this country. We truly live in the greatest country in the world, but to see how theatrical, I think that's a good word, our government at all levels, local, state, federal, how theatrical it
Mm.
is demoralizing. So I, it's not in my cards. I don't think right now. I pray every day for direction and guidance and protection and wisdom and strength and discernment and all the things. And he certainly provides. And so uh, just trusting him and where he leads me. But I pray that he doesn't lead me down that path.
Well, I did say we were going to talk about swimming, so let's get into swimming a little bit. Big year, so the Olympics in Paris, Olympic trials here in a few weeks. Did you have a chance to swim at U.S. Olympic trials?
I did. I qualified for trials in 2016 and 2020, which of course rolled into 2021.
Mm.
Went in 2016. Of course, I was 15, 16 maybe years old. I was so young.
Mhm.
But what an amazing experience that was. I qualified, I think, in the 100 freestyle, maybe 200 free, 200 fly. I can't even remember anymore. But it was so wild. Of course, you get there. You're in Omaha. I'd never been to Omaha before. My club team was very small, at least the site that I trained at. We didn't have really that caliber of swimmers, and so
Mm.
it was new to me. It was new to my coaches. We didn't really know what to expect, and so I get to the pool that first day, you get there a few days early and you get acclimated, you warm up in the competition pool, all the different things. And so I get to the pool, I walk into the building where they have the posters of Ryan Lochte and Missy Franklin and everyone
Mm,
on the doors. And so I walk in, I click the elevator button to, of course, go down to the pool, and the elevator doors open, and there's Michael Phelps. And I
mm.
just remember sitting there being 15, 16 years old and thinking to myself, how in the world did I get here? I'm in an elevator with Michael Phelps. And of course, I wanted to ask him for a photo so bad, but being young and, the different things, but I was with my wonderful parents who have no shame. And so they were like, hey, can Riley take a photo with you? And he was so kind and gracious and was like, sure. He's probably so over it.
Oh,
Um,
Riley, you got to find that photo somewhere. Where is it?
I have it. I'll have to, I'll send it to you, and maybe you
Yeah,
can enter it into this
yeah.
clip
Send it
somehow.
to me. Yeah.
I will. But that to me, it was a big kind of like aha defining moment. Really, I think a shift in how I viewed the sport, because a little background on me, I come from a family of athletes.
Mhm.
My dad, he was a professional football player. He played in the NFL. My mom, she was a Division I softball player. My oldest sister, she played softball. She went to Ole Miss. My
Mm.
brother's in college playing football now. My younger sister is a gymnast, an elite level gymnast. She's probably the best athlete of all of us, and I would never, ever,
Wow.
ever tell her that. Uh, my dad, all his brothers, they've won Super Bowls and done incredible things, and so I come from a family of athletes, and so playing at the highest level, it didn't really mean a whole lot to me. I hate to say that, but I was oblivious to what it meant, you know?
Mm.
I remember being 12, 13, 14 years old, and you post nation leading times and different things, and I would have other swimmers and parents come up to me and my parents, and they would say, Riley just got her quadruple A cut, and I had no idea what this meant. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just trying to do what I can do. That's it. But that moment, being in the elevator with Michael Phelps, to me, it was like, whoa, maybe if I really dedicated myself to this, really put in work and effort and time more so than I was doing now, maybe this could be something. Maybe I could compete at the collegiate level, what have you. So it was a really cool moment, and I don't think I'll ever forget it.
Yeah, that is a real cool moment, and they are the moments you don't forget in swimming. You have those little brushes, and you're like that has an influence on you big time. What about in terms of maybe your swimming idols growing up, people that you watched on TV or people that you admired? Any female swimmers that you kind of grew up admiring?
Of course, I think Dara Torres is amazing. Growing up in the same time of course, Katie Ledecky's kind of rise, I would say,
Right.
when I was in high school and different things. She is someone who is beyond incredible. She's amazing. So to be able to watch her, as I said, Missy Franklin, to me, she was amazing. She swam the 200 free, which was
Mm.
one of my events. Now she lives in Nashville, and so it's cool. Her husband, we both coach the summer league teams in my area, and so we get to see each other at city meet.
Wow.
And they're just wonderful people, which is it makes it all the better. They say don't to never meet your role models, but in
Mm.
meeting that family, they're just amazing. So all these women were people that I looked up to. I remember in 2016, this is kind of when Caleb Dressel was coming to the scene, at least on the Olympic stage. So he was someone who I thought was just super cool. He was really cute too, which always helps. So yeah, I would say those people.
Yeah, yeah. You pick some good people there. They're definitely incredible role models and have some incredible success in the pool. And Kayla's back at it. A couple of weeks. He's going to be going for another Olympic team here, so that'll be cool to watch. Do you still watch swimming? Like, will you watch the trials?
Of course I will. I definitely will. It's man, we are in a new era of
Mm,
swimming. I am glad I got out when I did, because the talent and the skill set and the speed at
mm,
which the highest level is competing at is remarkable. It's really unworldly, I would say. It's amazing.
yeah.
So I love watching. I feel like a lot of people in the sport of swimming, once they graduate or once they remove themselves from that atmosphere, uh, I feel like a lot of people end on kind of a bitter note, which is understandable in our sport. It's a very intensive sport. You're practicing all the time. I get it to kind of want to remove yourself entirely, but I really didn't end on a bitter note. Of course, it's a love-hate relationship, but I always loved competing. I really loved training. I love watching the sport. So I will certainly be watching. I was hoping to make it over to Paris actually
Mm,
to watch the Olympics in person. So we'll see if that transpires. But
that's
I hope
cool.
it does.
Yeah. Let's give you some props as well. I mean, you swam at the time in, I believe, the toughest conference, the SEC, and you won. Like you're an SEC champion in multiple time SEC champion. So it's like you reached the top, and let's give you props for that. Like, this is a swimming podcast. We talk to the best swimmers in the world. You're one of the best swimmers in the world. I mean, you were really, really good. So in terms of that, that progression to becoming a champion like that at that level, especially within the SEC, talk to me about the few years of struggle it took you to get to the top of the podium there.
Well, I love how you said a few years of struggle without even really knowing me, because that's so true.
Yeah.
Um, you get to college your freshman year.
Mm,
I thought I worked hard before college, and I was wrong. This was a different kind of working hard. You're in the water, 5 a.m., whatever time it was. You practice for a few hours. You go to class. You come back. You practice again from 1:30 to 4:30. We ate our dinner at old people time of 4:45 because we were starving.
yeah.
Iced your shoulders, did your homework, went to bed.
Yeah.
You woke up, you did it all again the next day.
Yeah.
Not to mention freshman year incorporating the weight room, which was new to
Mm,
me. I never lifted weights or anything like that. And so I think that was a large part in the improvements I had, is getting physically stronger.
mm,
But it was an adjustment period, that's for sure. And so freshman year, improving marginally, uh, but I knew I was capable of more. And so sophomore year rolls around. Um, I remember it was halfway through my sophomore year, around Christmas time, winter training, Christmas training, when I had finally developed this sense of consistency. I would say before that, I would come in one day and have a phenomenal lights out practice, and then the next day I couldn't even break a minute in a short course 100 freestyle. I mean, it was
mm,
it was bizarre, the level of variance that I had in my practices.
mm,
But it was like a light switch one day, midway through my sophomore year, and I was consistent in everything, consistent in my diet and my sleep schedule and my study habits, within my personal relationships, my attitude and my effort, and that was huge for me. And it was really my sophomore year when I started to have somewhat of this breakout season for me. But then in March of 2020, of course, 3, 4 days before we were supposed to leave for our
mm.
national championships, COVID hits, takes the nation by storm. Everything is
Mm.
shut down. We were sent home,
Right.
uh, which
I remember
was
that.
which I don't have to explain this to I'm sure anyone listening to this. I don't have to explain it to you, right? We're a sport where you don't get sent home from college. You don't get to take time off. You don't get days out of the water. No, that's unheard of.
Mm,
But that's the reality that we were left with. And so upon going back home to Tennessee, there were no pools, there were no gyms open, nothing like that. But uh, we have an abundance of lakes. And so I put on a wetsuit every single day, and I swam aimlessly miles in the lake, just hoping and praying that I would continue to improve when we were finally able to return junior year, which I really did. And it was my junior year, despite all the COVID stuff. And I'll be the first person to say that being a college athlete during the time of COVID was miserable, to say the least. Right, the social distancing and the contact tracing and the mandatory mask and the mandatory vaccines and
yeah.
different miserable.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, my junior year, this is when I was voted team captain. This is when I won my first individual SEC title. This is when University of Kentucky, one of my favorite actually memory in my entire athletic career, was when University of Kentucky won the SEC title as a team. This is a school that has historically been at the bottom of the SEC. Lars Jorgensen comes around. He really helps develop and build this team. We were able to win an SEC title, which was amazing. Every single person scored, which is huge. It shows the depth that we had as a team. We weren't a team that had a ton of star power. We definitely had some, but we were a deep team and everyone cared immensely. I love that memory. And ultimately, my junior year, I placed 7th in the country in the 200 free. Wasn't my best time. It wasn't a fantastic race, but I was proud of this. To be top 8, you're an All-American. It's a pretty high honor. Our 800 free relay placed 2nd in the nation behind Virginia, which was a super cool moment for us. Again, University of Kentucky trailing, the likes of Paige Madden, Alex Walsh. It was another really good memory for me, and I think for us as a team. And then senior year rolls around, and that's when my mindset was to just work as hard as I could when I was at the pool, on the pool deck, and when I left the pool. I didn't think about swimming. I didn't talk about swimming, but I did what I could when I was there. I was working hard. I was on 100%. Did some great things. This is when I broke the SEC record in the 200 butterfly. I believe making me the 8th or 9th fastest American of all time in that event. I won the 200 free title again, which was cool to be able to defend that title. Lots of really awesome things. Geared up, ready to go for our national championships. And that's when, boom, the NCAA released a statement saying that they would allow Thomas, a male who was mediocre at best when competing against the men, to compete in the women's category, which actually the verbiage they used was this was a non-negotiable, indicating there was nothing that we could do, no questions that we could ask, concerns that we could raise as female athletes. We were told pretty explicitly, at least at my school, we had to accept this with a smile on our face. And so myself, my teammates, of course, being captain of 40 girls, I was able to feel out how my teammates felt about this. And of the 40 girls on my team, 38 of them feel the exact same way that I'm sharing, that this was wrong, it was unfair, and it was ultimately harmful to women and women's sports.
It was definitely, but as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, you could be doing root canals right now. I mean, thank God for Thomas, that she came along, or he came along and started competing against you, because look at the life change you've had. Now, I'm joking, obviously, but it's like,
No,
yeah,
it's true.
I mean, it's horrendous in terms of the fact that you're thinking to yourself, what, I've got to race this now. I mean, I remember at the time I was just in complete shock that this was actually happening. I was like, they're letting this happen. This is actually going to happen. It was just, to me, it was insane. And I'm like you, like I followed the trajectory of like that year of the progression that they were making, and it's like, this is going to end up really badly. Like I was thinking to myself that, she was going to go to the NCAA championships and just absolutely destroy people, which I think did happen in the 500, right? But not so much in the 200, which was interesting. But yeah, I mean, I just couldn't believe it was happening to me as a coach, as a swimmer. I was like, there's no way that this can happen. What is going on here? It was blowing my mind.
That's how we all felt. And when I say we all, I'm not trying to speak for, and I know I don't speak for every single girl on that pool deck. But I certainly speak for the overwhelming majority of us. Look, I saw the tears. I saw the tears from girls who placed 9th and 17th and missed out on being named an All-American by 1 place. The tears from the moms watching in the stands as their daughters are being obliterated in the sport that they once loved. I felt the extreme discomfort in the locker room. When you turn around, there's a 6'4" man, fully intact, fully undressing, inches away from where you were simultaneously fully undressed. I heard the whispers, because that's what they were. They were whispers of anger and frustration from girls who, just like myself, had worked our entire lives to get to this meet. So I share the same kind of bewilderment that you speak of there's no way this will actually happen. It felt like a big South Park episode, or like an SNL skit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reaction that I think I had for a while, was admittedly, kind of ashamedly, I felt this sense of intriguement in those months leading up. What is this going to look like? Is he really as tall as his Instagram pictures make him look? Will he be
Right.
in the locker room? Will he sandbag his events to make it look more competitive? We had so many questions, but those feelings of curiosity and intriguement and feeling like we were kind of in this circus environment shifted that first day at prelims, watching the 500 freestyle, watching him
Mm.
destroy the final heat of prelims. That's when those feelings shifted to utter heartbreak, really. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut watching this. I didn't know how much Title IX or being able to compete at that level really meant to me until we were directly impacted in that way. And now it continues to happen. It's not just swimming. We've seen multiple examples of this happening in collegiate swimming. And it's virtually the same story every time, where it's a mediocre man, or really oftentimes a less than average man, who becomes a record smasher on the women's team. We saw this at Roanoke College. We saw this at Ramapo College. We just saw at the Division III national championships a man compete and place third in the nation in the women's, I believe, 200 meter. So it continues to happen, which is why myself and 15 other athletes are suing the NCAA. One of those
Mm.
being Kylie Alons, who is someone who, she's like a 31-time All-American. She's a role model of
Wow.
mine. She's signed on to this lawsuit. We have Reka Gregory from Virginia Tech. She placed 17th in the 500 freestyle, missing out on coming back for finals because of Thomas. She signed on to this lawsuit. Tons of other swimmers.
What is the lawsuit saying? What are you trying to achieve with it?
What we are saying, what we are suing over, is the NCAA failing at their most basic duties of ensuring privacy in our locker rooms, equal opportunities, which is of course, as I said, I've mentioned Title IX, the federal civil rights law that prevents sex-based discrimination. What the NCAA did was explicitly discriminate against us on the basis of our sex. So what we're looking for is accountability. Number one, the NCAA has abdicated all accountability and responsibility since this moment. I'll tell you, it was so wild to me that in the days following this national championships, Mark Emmert, he was the president of the NCAA at the time. He's, of course, now stepped down. But he released a public statement. And in this public statement, it word for word says, I unequivocally stand in my decision to allow Lia Thomas to swim with the women because it's based in evolving science, is what he said. But privately, at their annual conference convention, where they announce NCAA Woman of the Year, which is the most prestigious honor for collegiate female athletes. I was University of Kentucky's nominee, which I could not have been more humbled by until we saw a full list of nominees, and Lia Thomas was University of Pennsylvania's nominee for NCAA Woman of the Year. But anyways, I go to this conference and I see Mark Emmert, and I'm like, there's no way he's getting away from me. I'm going to go talk to him. He comes up and he says, you know what, Riley, keep fighting, keep pushing.
Wow.
But the audacity for him to tell me to keep fighting when he is the one that I'm fighting. So again, whether it's the NCAA, whether it's our government, whether it's academia, corporate America, we are a nation that is led and governed by weak-kneed, spineless, morally bankrupt cowards. And Mark Emmert and now Charlie Baker, they fall into that category.
Damn, you're swinging. Hey, I love that. You're tough. How tall are you? Like 5 what?
I'm like 5'5", 5'6". Yeah.
Damn, yeah. You
Like
don't
our
want to mess with Riley Gaines. Damn, that's crazy. That's awesome. Good for you. That's cool. It's just, there's definitely a fighter in you, and it's been there for all your life, and now it's manifesting in this way, which is cool. But it used to manifest in the pool. Like you were a fighter. Like every athlete, for those that don't know swimming or athletics, you have a decision to make at some point. How good do you want to be? And a lot of that comes from an internal drive. And it sounds like this internal drive that developed over time in swimming is now coming out in this manner. Like, I'm going to fight, like I've already got it in me. I don't need to, develop it anymore. It's in me, right?
110%. Like I said, these characteristics and traits that I feel like I use most in my day-to-day life now are traits that I've developed because of playing
Right.
sports.
Mm.
I still feel like I'm on a team. I really do. I still feel like I'm working to achieve these goals that we have set as a team. Of course, my leadership, my time management, all things that I accredit to swimming, to playing sports, the resiliency, the perseverance, the ability to, sometimes be knocked down a few pegs, but
Yeah.
stand back up and keep going. Uh, Swimming embodied that, I think, for so many people. So it prepared me weirdly. And it's like you said, I truthfully, I felt so unprepared at first. I didn't
Mm.
understand how these skills you develop in swimming transcend beyond athletics. And I would ask, why me? I'm not
Mm.
someone who I had no background in civics or civil process or understanding our government at all. I never had to take a government course. I never had to take history. I knew we had three branches of government. Didn't know what they do. I still don't know what they do. I don't even think they know what they do, to be totally honest with you. My public speaking courses in college, my face turned the color of a tomato. Okay. By no means did I feel prepared for this. But I was wrong in assuming that God calls those who are already prepared, because that's not what he does. He prepares those who he calls. And if he brings you to it, he'll certainly bring you through it. That's been overly evident. And I feel like my day-to-day life and how I'm able to tackle these issues, how I, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy, but it kind of is. It is easy. It's easy saying what I'm saying because it's not controversial to me. It's just not. It's common sense.
Do you have moments though where you're like I'm doing right now, where you're having to think about what you're saying in terms of, like, obviously now you've got a global voice and there are many millions of people that are going to listen to it. So at times now, do you catch yourself saying, well, this group over here is going to take it this way. This group over here is going to take it this way. This is the way I intend it. Are you kind of like structuring some of this in your mind, or are you just speaking freely now?
I'm definitely speaking freely, but I do see the value, and it's something that's important to me in how you're communicating your message. I think something that our side, I say our side, this issue has become overly polarized and as I said, politicized in a way that this isn't a political issue, but it's seemingly, at least in terms of our elected officials and again the media,
Mm.
has fallen almost on party lines. And when speaking to how you know, conservative members of the House or Senate or our government, they speak to this issue. It's not effective. They're not persuading anyone to understand our side, and that's something that I dedicate a lot of my time to now.
Mm.
Is even teaching these members of Congress or what have you how to talk about these issues. The way that we should be framing this is not, this really isn't anti anything. I'm not standing against anything or any single person. I have no animosity towards Thomas. I really don't. Look, Thomas was following the rules. It's the rules that I have a problem with, and I've been very clear on that really since the beginning. So again, I'm not standing against anything. I'm standing for something, and what I'm standing for is transparency. I am standing for privacy. I am standing for safety, for fairness, for equal opportunity. The message that I am sending is a message that is pro woman, uh, which it blows my mind that being pro woman has almost immediately been deemed as anti trans. Okay, and if that's the logic, then wouldn't being pro trans inherently be anti woman? And what do we call someone
Yeah.
who's anti woman? We call them a misogynist. So I do see the value in structuring and talking about this issue in a way that we hear the word compassion all the time and inclusion. but just reminding people, is it really compassionate to young girls to ask them to undress in front of a man? Is that what compassion is? And is
Mhm.
it really inclusion when you're asking us to smile and step aside and allow these men onto our podiums? Is that what inclusion is? I don't think so. I think that's exclusion. And it's exclusive to the very female athletes, the very women and girls who Title IX and the women's sporting category was created to protect and to celebrate. In terms of initially speaking out about this, um, I thought it was respectful to use the preferred pronouns to say she, her when referring to Thomas. Uh, but I realize now that's really not what respect is. It's furthering a lie, what is already a farce. It's not respectful to anyone. It's not respectful to people who need to hear and see clear language being used. It's not respectful to Thomas even to lie in that way. No, what we should be telling him is that he's perfect just the way that God created him. Not that he's correct to feel as if he's born in the wrong body. What a terrible message to send to anyone. So, anyways, I think we hear this word gender affirmation, uh, but it's really a harmful message when you're telling someone they're correct to feel as if they're born wrong. I think that's very,
Mm.
I think that's harmful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a I mean, it seems like a very complex issue, and then at the same time, it seems like a very basic issue at the same time,
I
you
know
know? So it's like
it's
I agree with you in terms of the fighting for common sense. It seems like common sense to me, but it does seem complex when you get into the weeds of it. But I want to go back to something athletically because I think this gets overlooked, and I think this is something that all of us as competitors face when we're facing an adversary or people that we're in a situation where we're racing the best, right? Like you're at the NCAA's, you've put yourself into the finals. Normally you're comparing yourself against the girls that are in the race, right? Like, okay, that's her strengths, that's her weaknesses, this is where I'm good, this is where I can make my move. Like you're thinking tactically, especially in a 200 freestyle. So in warm-ups, you're kind of going through that or whatever it is in preparations for it. Behind the blocks, I want to know, can you take us back to that moment where you're standing behind the blocks? You're about to release this performance. You're about to put on a show for yourself and justify your training and all the hard work you've done. You're in this moment where you're standing behind the blocks, but now you've got this 6'4" man standing next to you, and you're thinking to yourself, like, it's not even, I can't even compare it. Like it's I'm out of my weight class basically, right? So it's like, are you thinking that way at that point, or were you just thinking about yourself?
No, 100%. I was thinking that way.
Okay.
Again, that's how majority of us were feeling. It felt as if we were competing for second place at that point. We were going into the race with our hands tied behind our back. Especially, this is of course the second day of competition. We watched Thomas the first day win the national title in the 500 free. His feet hardly even kicking. He's the last one off the block by miles, it seemed. He didn't do any underwater kicks off his walls, which of course, as you know,
Mm.
I would say that's an instrumental, especially in a 200 free, an instrumental part of racing and going fast. So
So
it just
you think he was holding back? Is that what you think?
it's actually been admitted that he was holding back.
Wow.
His coach had said to some of his other teammates at UPenn, which they've expressed to me, that he wanted to make it seem competitive, but not like trans women always dominate. Which
Mm.
what a slap in the face that is. Um, Again, I'm not one to speculate. I don't know. I don't. I'm just communicating what has been told to me by what from his teammates, what the coach said to them.
It seemed that way. Like when I was watching it visually, like you said, like absolutely no dolphin kick off the wall. Like you would do one or two, you'd do something that would get that propulsion, and it was almost like he was, holding back that propulsion to say, like, no, I'm going to make this as even as I possibly can, even though I'm going to destroy everybody.
Yeah, and that's how it felt. And yeah, you don't have to be a swimmer to go back and watch the race. I think you can find it on YouTube or wherever. and it's visible. It's
Mm,
visibly obvious
mm.
that this person sticks out like a sore thumb. So that, and of course, watching the 100 free the next day, I think it was, was it strategic that this person got first the first day, won a national title, then placed fifth, and then placed eighth, doing just enough to make it to be a top, an All-American in the final heat. It's a huge honor. Even placing eighth, that's a huge honor. But was it strategic? I think it's worth considering. I think another thing about this meet, which was unique, was that not only did we have Lia Thomas, a male self-identifying as a woman who we were told we fully had to treat as a woman, we had another athlete who identified as trans, who, of course, is a female, who began to self-identify as a man, competing with the women who we were told we fully had to treat as a man.
Wow.
So it shows you how the women's category has become this catch-all. We're the ones who are ultimately being forced to compete against men who identify as women, women who identify as men, both writing in their arms in big black Sharpie, "Let trans kids play," as if they both weren't playing in the category that best suited them and their chances for success. Uh,
Mm.
so, yeah.
Yeah, why don't some of these women compete in the men's category and see how that goes?
Yeah, well, I think that's a rhetorical question because everyone knows
Yeah.
why that's not the case and why that's not happening.
Let me ask you this then, back to that, is that, how did you not crumble? Like, in those circumstances, you've gotta be strong, but you've gotta be focused, and you've gotta be relaxed. Like, you still went 143, right? Is that right? 143?
Yeah, yeah,
And
which
that's fast. That's really fast.
it was okay. It wasn't a best time. I always
No,
struggle.
143 is good, Riley. Come on. Like, give
Thank
yourself
you.
some credit. That's quick. That's a quick swim.
Well, thank you. I was one of those people who typically struggled when going back from conference to a few weeks later to NCAA's. So I would typically do better at conference, but nonetheless, yeah, I think finishing top 5 in the country, it is something that I'm proud of. Um, so yeah, but you ask how I didn't crumble. Um, I think a couple things. One, I had an amazing team. I had amazing teammates. We constantly reinforced to each other. Yes, we had personal goals. Of course, we did. But more importantly, we were dedicated to achieving our goals we set as a team. And knowing that you're doing something for bigger than just yourself, that was huge for me. My coach, he was, I mean, just the best coach for me. Was someone who constantly motivated me to be better. I loved his coaching style. I loved everything about University of Kentucky when I was there.
Mm.
So I think that was a big part in not crumbling, is because I knew I couldn't, if we wanted to be a top 10 team, which is a goal that we set. Again, Kentucky's not historically known for being a dominant swimming school. I'm not naive to that. But in my 4 years there, we were able to finish top 15, top 10, I think all 4 years, which is it's
Yeah.
pretty good.
No, I was out of the game. I was the head coach at Auburn until 2018, and I'll be honest with you, I was shocked when Kentucky won the SEC championship. I'm like, how did what? Hang on, what just happened? So yeah, it's surprising because I wasn't following the whole year, but I was obviously thinking to myself, wow, they put a team together. They didn't, like you said, you didn't have superstars. You don't win an SEC title at that level without a team of women that are deep, and you obviously had that. So props to you guys there. But a couple more swimming questions then. So the Riley Gaines 200 free race strategy, or talk us through your race strategy.
Control, build, sprint, overkick. That's always what I tried
Oh,
to do. So first 50, of course, your easy speed. I had a bad habit, as most sprinter end of mid distance swimmers do,
mm,
of going out too fast and
mm,
then eating it on the last little bit. So
yeah.
I really try to develop this easy speed the first 50, build the second 50. So by the time you're flipping at the 100 mark, I tried to be in an all out sprint. The third 50 is always the worst, right? It's certainly the most painful, at least in my experiences. But I really developed this mindset where I tried to embrace the pain, find comfort in the uncomfortable. And so I would sprint the third 50 as much as I could. And then last 50 overkick. So just everything that you got with your legs, that last 50. And it was funny. That was kind of my strategy. And my teammates, as I said, we had a pretty dominant, at least in the SEC level, finishing second in the country. We had a pretty dominant 800 free relay. And we all kind of developed and implemented this strategy, which was, again, good memories just to be able to look back on, watching each other in the water, knowing exactly what we were thinking, what your teammates are thinking at what point in their race, because again, we tried to use the same strategy, which good memories.
That's awesome. Now, what about a favorite set? I often ask guests that I have on here, like, what's a set that you remember that really pushed you or challenged you, or something that you repeated often? Do you remember something like that?
Oh gosh. So at Kentucky, we were not one of those schools that had like a sprint program. Okay. Like we were grinding every day.
Right.
We swam 15,000 yards, 16,000. I mean, when we were doing doubles, it was, we swam a lot of volume. That's for sure. And so we did a lot of test sets. I can remember a couple that are ingrained in my mind as much as I've even tried to forget them. One of the ones we would do is 15 200s on 2:15, I think. Best average, as fast as you can go for 15 200s. Never fun.
What do you think you could hold at your best then? What were you going?
I think my average was around 155, 156 at the time. Wow. Again, of course, short course.
Yeah.
Which, I look back on that and I'm like, oh my goodness, how did we do that? We did 31s, long course off the block. I feel like that's a pretty standard one. What
was the interval on that one off the block? What'd you do it off?
I think we did it on 2 minutes, so it was a little longer rest.
Right. But you got to get up and get out of the pool. That's tough.
We did. We had multiple times a year we would do a 2,000 for time, which is, I'll never forget my freshman year. We had a 2,000 for time, and me coming into college, I was never a distance swimmer even in my time in college, but improved at it, got better at endurance training for sure. But when I first got to college, no way was I going to swim a fast 2,000 for time. And so we did. I finished. Lars, of course, our coach, he wrote everyone's name on the board where they finished, at the top all the way down to the woman who finished last in the 2,000. And I was about middle of the pack, probably towards the lower end. And he brought us all out of the pool. And at the time, we had Gina Frericks, who she was an SEC champion in the 200 free. We had Allie Gallier, who always finished in the top of the SEC. We had Asia Sight, who was incredible. She won NCAA Woman of the Year. She was an SEC champion in the 200 back. She's amazing. And they were like the top three finishers. And so he pulled us all out of the water and he said, Riley, what do you notice about this board? If what do you notice? And I didn't know what he was getting at. I'm like, that the fast people are at the top and those who probably need to do better at the bottom. He said, those top three girls who finished first, second, and third in the 2,000. He said, those are the girls on our 800 free relay. And if you want a spot on that relay, you'll never get that spot finishing where you just finished in this. And this is when I found my sass for the first time. And I think when he realized, he of course tried to push us until our breaking points. And I think the best way. And I told him, well, Lars, there's no such thing as an 8,000 relay. So until there is, I'm not overly, and I don't feel overly, passionate about going fast in a 2,000.
Good. That's the response I like. There we go.
So lots of good sets. I love kick sets. I love kicking. That was probably my strong suit.
Sounds like it, that last 50 where you bring your legs on. I think that's somewhat overlooked in all facets of swimming is the leg strength and the power and the necessity. It drives the stroke, right? Like you've got to have a good kick ultimately 100%. To compete. What about a sprint set? Come on, Riley. You must have done some form of sprinting at some point.
Gosh, I think towards the end of my time, maybe junior, senior year, maybe a little bit, but really not a ton. I wish we did. I really had to develop as a 50, 100 freestyler. I think my 100 time at the end was 47 low-ish, maybe. I was able to
That's
go,
quick.
I think, 21 pretty consistently in the 50 free, at least in
Did you really?
relays.
You got to 21?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I never really swam it on my own, but in relays and stuff, I could
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
21.5
Wow.
or so. And so,
That's quick.
um, yeah, but again, not we didn't do a lot of training for it, but we didn't have a lot of sprinters, and so was able to
Did you
develop.
do power workouts? Like, did you use equipment like buckets or stretch
We did.
cords
We
or
did some
parachutes?
Wednesday afternoons. We would do that was our set.
Okay.
I really tried to develop at my underwaters. That was something I was not good at coming into college, but I saw just how important it was. Watching people like Alex and Gretchen Walsh and Kate Douglas, these phenoms, how long Ryan White. I mean, how long they can stay underwater,
Mm.
how far it propelled them was amazing to me. And it was a skill set that I did not have. And so it's something that I definitely worked towards and got a lot better at towards the end of my career.
Actually, just with you naming people like that and just your knowledge, and has anyone reached out to you to maybe do some commentary, like USA Swimming or NBC, or have they reached out to you for that?
I'm way too controversial for them now, Brett. No way. But I will say there's been a lot of athletes who
We need eyeballs on the sport, Riley. Eyeballs.
I know that, and it's something that really I would love to be dedicated to is highlighting just how awesome our sport really is. I think
Mm.
it is overlooked, right? Everyone thinks their sport is the hardest, is the most fun to watch. Swimming is definitely the hardest.
Mm.
There's no question there. I think gymnastics competes, right? Just the sheer amount of time you're in the gym, how the impact on your body, but swimming is kind of bar none to
Yeah.
the work that you put in.
Yeah. Well, it's a great sport. I love it too. And it keeps pulling us back, as much as we think we're out of it, it pulls us back somehow. You're about to go and swim, around an old prison, which is crazy. Tell me this, what does the next few months look like for you? You seem like you're all over the place, but how do you map it out? How do you plan it?
I am all over the place. I am quite literally all over the place. I was in 5 states yesterday, Brett. I was
Oh, yeah.
started off in Tennessee, flew to New Jersey, drove to Pennsylvania, from Pennsylvania, drove to New York, and then Connecticut.
Wow.
So all over the place. I've got a lot of things planned over the next month or so. Of course, we have an administration in the White House who has rewritten Title IX, abolished Title IX, really, and its original intent. The most anti-woman, anti-reality pursuit we have seen from this administration by far, equating sex with gender identity, meaning there are no sex-based protections. Men can live in dorm rooms with women. Men have full access to bathrooms, locker rooms, changing spaces. Your speech is compelled. Men can take academic and athletic scholarships away from women. So we've got some events over the next month, really trying to highlight this illegal administrative rewrite of Title IX, really trying to prop up some elected officials. This is a big year in terms of the Senate. So targeting states
Yeah.
like Montana, West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, where there's important Senate races, and putting those who oppose protecting women and girls in sports on the record. Because again, this is certainly a winning issue, regardless of your political affiliation. 90% of people, every Gallup poll shows it, agree that only women should be in women's sports. So just trying to restore that representation in areas of where people are voting. I mean, having real impact on the outcomes here.
What about your husband? Is he on the road with you, or is he stay at home working? What's going on with him?
Yeah, he gets to travel some with me. He works in construction, so he does pools and concrete and houses and all the different things.
Mm.
But he's such a blessing. I keep bringing home animals, and it's him it's him who has to stay home and take care of him. He's like, Riley, stop. I just brought home another horse. And he's like, stop bringing these animals home. We just had a litter of puppies. So Brett, if you want a dog.
I did see that. I was like, it's tempting. But I was like, no, you can't get me. Yeah, that's crazy. Well, listen, I asked my Instagram audience yesterday. They said, for questions today. And one came through from Felipe Delgado, a good friend of mine and former Olympian himself. Daughter swims at USC. But he did say, well, there's in this world of celebrity boxing matches and tournaments and people facing off each other, would you ever get together with Lia Thomas again and do a celebrity swim, a race maybe?
Hey, I would be all for it. I really would. It's like I said, I don't have animosity towards Thomas. No, I don't support, as a Christian, I can't support the idea of someone physically altering themselves, changing God's perfect and intentional design made in his image. I don't support that, but that's the beauty of America. We don't have to. I can still, not necessarily support everything this person is doing, but live in I guess, in harmony with Thomas. So I would love to. I would love that. I've tried to reach out and have conversations. There's been no response, unsurprisingly. But I'm all for it.
There we go. Felipe, let's get it together, man. It's on. Let's go. All right. That'd be cool as hell. Hey, listen, I appreciate your time. I know that you're super busy and thanks for doing this and just kind of digging into your swimming brain a little bit and getting to know you as an athlete, I think is also important. There's a lot of young girls out there that certainly look up to you and admire what you're doing and appreciate the fact that you're fighting for them. But there's also that swimmer in them of like, hey, I wish I knew more about her as an athlete. So this has been really helpful. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you. And being at Auburn, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say that. Did you know Rowdy Gaines and I are 6 cousins?
That's been the question that always comes up. I was like, is she related to Rowdy? So 6 cousins, hey? Wow, okay.
6 cousins first removed, whatever that means. But
and you've obviously met each other.
Oh yeah, he's great. Okay. His wonderful wife did a genealogy test, and we found out that we've got ancestors in East Tennessee. Which I have people all the time in the swimming world say, is he your dad? No, definitely not. But
Rowdy was a 200 freestyler too. Look at that.
There we go.
Got the genes there, but cool. All right, appreciate it. Listen, send me that Michael Phelps photo. I'll get it out there as well. But appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
You got it. Thank you, Brett.
See ya. Bye.